How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at one of the two new DLCs for Civilization 6. Today is going to be the Vikings Scenario Pack. Now, this DLC is actually more than just a scenario or multiple scenarios. It actually adds some content to the base game that will be featured in both single player and multiplayer. So let's cover that first. The Vikings DLC pack includes the 6 new city-states, and let's cover them from top to bottom on the Civilopedia here. The Civilopedia, I should say. So there are a total of 6 different city-state categories: cultural, industrial, militaristic, religious, scientific, and trade. Since this DLC adds a total of 6 new city-states, you're going to receive one of each type. So starting out with cultural, we have apparently a city that's located in Madagascar. You can see their icon is the lemur, and their bonus is your civilization gains 2% culture for each great person it has ever earned. In my opinion, it is not the best, but then again, the cultural city-states have never really been top tier, even if you're going for a cultural victory. In industrial, we have Auckland, and this is based off of a city that's north of New Zealand, but its bonus is actually pretty good if you're playing maybe an archipelago map where you have a lot of water. So the Auckland's Caesarian bonus is shallow water tiles worked by citizens provide +1 additional cog, additional +1 when you reach the industrial era. So that is a potential of 2 additional production coming from the water for your sea-based civilizations. Now, obviously, most maps you're not going to have a whole lot of cities located on the coast. It only provides in shallow waters, in other words, a coast area. You're not actually going to be receiving this boost in the ocean tiles, but that's pretty significant and helps make up for how utterly weak any city based on the shore is currently in Civilization 6. So I think it is currently going to be probably one of the most powerful if you're actually playing a water-based map. It's one of the most powerful city-states that you can earn, because going with production is always benefits pretty much everything. There's no downside to having more production regardless of the victory type or playstyle that you're going for. Next is Grenada, which is based in the Iberian Peninsula. It is a city-state, and the Caesarian bonus that it provides, it allows your builders to build the Alcazar Improvement. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the new Alcazar Improvement. Right here it is. It adds to the tile, once constructed, an additional +2 culture, and occupying units receive an additional +4 defense strength and automatically gain 2 turns of fortification. Now, you're not going to be able to build these in a row, as they cannot be built next to another improvement of the same type. Overall, I feel this improvement is a little weak. One of the biggest problems with the forts and the like is that you don't, like, a lot of the time you don't actually get to choose the type of terrain you fight on. So unless you're just using it strategically to defend some key choke point, there are probably better improvements you can actually put down on your land. Like receiving an additional 2 culture is usually not that significant when you could be building things like farms or mines on there. But we'll see how that plays out in the long run. Next, we have a city-state called something like Armagh. It is based in Ireland, and its unique Caesarian bonus is that your builders can now build Monastery Improvements. So this is another city-state that gives you access to a unique improvement. Let's go ahead and take a look at that monastery. So the monastery, it will give any tile that builds it an additional +2 faith and +15 HP healing for friendly religious units on the tile that have not attacked that turn. Now, when I say attacked, I assume moved, but it is possible that you could move on to the tile and heal the next turn. That would actually be pretty strong, but I can't confirm or deny it as I have not actually tested it yet. But it cannot be built next to another monastery, which is pretty standard for these types of improvements. Now, this one, I think it might be particularly strong if you're going for a religious victory, because it will allow you to essentially create little outposts to heal your units, and especially like apostles, when you're sending them out to combat, enemy missionaries and enemy apostles in foreign lands as you attempt to spread your religion. Having these monasteries situated close to your borders in a way that your apostles have quick access to heal could actually be pretty instrumental in deciding whether you're going to be successful in spreading your religion or your apostles will get killed. So overall, I think this is probably one of the better religious city-states, but overall religion in the game, I think a lot of players have actually expressed their discontent with it, so it's not all that popular. But if you're going for that type of victory, this is definitely a pretty good city-state to consider becoming the suzerain of. Next, we have the lost city of Palenque, is how I'm going to pronounce that. The unique Caesarian bonus for Palenque is an additional 15% growth rate in cities with a campus district. Personally, I think this is a little bit weak considering science is like third. Production comes first in order of priority, then commerce, and then science probably. And the fact that research or technology to begin with is not really like a limiting factor. It moves along fairly well without all of these additional bonuses. I think coupled together with those anecdotes, this ultimately is a rather weak bonus. And lastly, for trade, we have Muscat, which is a city that was based at the mouth of the Persian Gulf. I've actually heard the name before, but I was never aware of where it was located. So the Caesarian bonus for this one is an additional amenity in cities with a commercial hub district. Now, compared to some of the other ones, this one isn't that strong for trade, but the unique bonus is pretty interesting because you're almost guaranteed to get it for every single city, since building commercial hub districts is pretty standard. It's like one of the first districts you build, aside from, say, for example, the industrial zone, and that actually has changed now that the industrial zone doesn't stack the way it used to. So it can actually be rather appealing. One additional amenity per city, pretty much guaranteed. In addition to the city-states, the Vikings Scenario Pack also adds 3 new natural wonders that are available in both the standard single player as well as multiplayer games. The first one is apparently something of a bit of a spaz out. I don't know if whoever named it actually had a stroke on the keyboard while attempting to come up with something, but we have the Ijafjaflafukl. Anyway, it's not important because it is basically the name of an Icelandic volcano and the ice cap plugging its cauldron. This natural wonder provides adjacent land plots with an additional 1 culture and 2 food. The next natural wonder is the Lies Fjord. It's basically glacial erosion from the Ice Age, which carved a fjord in southern Norway. The bonus it provides is naval combat units that enter adjacent plots are granted their next promotion. I personally feel like this is one of those wonders that once it's introduced into a game, especially a multiplayer game, everybody is going to feel compelled to move their naval units next to it once built so they get the next promotion. I think it adds a bit of an unnecessary micro action to the game, but we'll see how that turns out. The last one is the Giant's Causeway. You may have noticed a theme here. All 3 of these wonders are sort of focused on the Scandinavian area. Obviously, one was in Iceland, one was in Norway, and this one is also, this one's in Northern Ireland. Anyway, the Giant's Causeway provides land units that are adjacent to the plots, the Spear of Fion ability, which adds to the unit's base strength an additional +5 combat strength. Much like the previous natural wonder, I feel that this one only encourages players to seek it out for every unit that they build, essentially, to make sure that they are optimized for that world, because the minute this wonder spawns down in that world and you're relatively close to it and your neighbor has that promotion, you know, you're at a significant disadvantage unless you get your units next to it as well. And the other addition in the Vikings Scenario Pack is, if we go to scenarios here, you'll be able to select Vikings, Traders, and Raiders scenario. There are 3 different leaders you can play. It depends. One is Finland. Wait, let's see here. One is Denmark, one is Norway, and one is Sweden. None of the leader heads for these civilizations are animated. They appear to be like these wooden busts. And I'm going to load up the game that I completed. Might be a bit of a spoiler. So here we are, 1 turn away from victory for me. This is turn 99. I started out playing Norway. You start out with 3 cities right here along the Scandinavian peninsula, and I actually successfully invaded England, the English, however you want to refer to that. And I also started invading France here. Overall, I only played this scenario on the normal difficulty, and it lasts for a total of 100 turns. In that time, it started to drag on a bit. I would say about 80 turns, 75 to 80 turns into it, but up until that point I was actually having a blast with it. There was a unique wonder over here. Maybe I should not spoil this. It's Finland, and you can use Finland to score points. So that's pretty much the objective of this scenario. Unlike a lot of other Civilization 6 games, or pretty much the standard Civilization 6 games, this scenario has unique victory conditions. So you will gain victory points according to these conditions. If you have an empire, you will receive 25 victory points per city. Great people, 50 victory points per great person earned. For trade, 25 victory points per trade route capacity. That's that number right up here. Pillage, 10 victory points per tile pillaged. Finland, I showed you the wonder over there. 1,000 victory points if first to activate a great admiral adjacent to Finland. 500 for the second, 300 for the third, and 100 afterwards. I managed to get, what was it? I think 2 great admirals in my time playing the scenario. Other civilizations managed to score the other great admirals. And then for religion, 50 victory points for pillaging a tile before adopting Catholicism, and 50 victory points for adding population after adopting Catholicism. And then there's also a bonus on the last turn, 1 victory point for every 10 gold in your treasury, and 1 victory point for every 5 faith you currently possess. So let's take a look at the scores. I am currently vastly in the lead here, and if we look at show details, you can see exactly why. Up until about turn 60, I was actually tied with France. But thanks in part to Finland and me conquering England, all that changed. And like I said, keep in mind, I was playing this on the normal difficulty. If you're playing it on a higher difficulty, it's less likely that you will be able to outbeat the AI in terms of production of faith and trade routes and stuff like that, because these other civilizations are not fighting. But this, I like this scenario. There was a scenario much like this in Civilization 4 that I also had a blast playing, and it was sort of a throwback to that. I like the focus that, you know, the focus was a little bit more concentrated. I remember in the Civilization 4 Vikings scenario, you actually have to sail for a long distance to actually reach England, and there was a lot of monkeying around in it. It was just England for the most part. I think there was a little bit of France as well, but the scope of this one is much bigger. Like you can actually see right down here is Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, and there's actually the Mediterranean is in here as well. So the scope of this scenario is much bigger than the one that was in Civilization 4. And I definitely like that. It sort of gave you more options. And your playstyle might change depending upon which civilization you choose. You have the choice of, like I pointed out, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So each of them sort of has an ideal area to target. Like Denmark would probably be targeting France. Sweden might target Germany over here a little bit more. And of course, Norway targets the United Kingdom or England. But overall, the reviews for this DLC have not been positive. This is the only scenario that was included, and the most revolutionary features, like I pointed out, has been the scoring system. The governments have also been changed. If you look at changed governments here, pretty much just limited them The research was also changed. If we go over to the tech tree, you can see there's a lot less here to it. So they stripped out a lot of stuff. And I think that was one of the major reasons why a lot of people didn't like it, is they're essentially charging $5 for this scenario plus an additional 6 new states. And you're not getting a whole lot. Obviously, the 6 new city-states will be usable in the main part of the game, in the base game, because it's applied like DLC. So you can activate it and they will show up in any new games you start post-patch. But the scenario, I think, was a little bit lacking. They didn't go quite all total conversion on it, but personally, I have a weak spot for scenarios. I personally find them more engaging than a traditional game. Like, I'll play through the game once or twice, and then I've pretty much had my fill of it. And I like this idea of focusing on smaller objectives that are, they have a limited amount of time to complete. So both of the DLC scenarios, I'm going to be covering the Polish one later this week, but the scenario that was included with the Vikings Scenario Pack, I actually like it a lot, like I said, but I'm not exactly sure I would say it was worth $5. Obviously, I got access to it because I bought the digital deluxe version or edition of Civilization 6, but I can sort of understand the discontent with it. It does feel like overall it's a little bit light on the content, especially since they shoved both of these 2 DLCs out back to back. I could understand it a little bit more if they were both being developed and maybe they released one last month with that patch and then they released another one this month in December with the winter patch, but that's not the way it ended up working. So I think it feels like to a lot of players that they sort of got nickeled and dimed here, because what you have to consider is that since they pushed both of these DLCs out at the same time, they could have just rolled it into one and charged $5 for that. And I think that would help bridge a lot of the discontent that especially more hardcore and more veteran players of Civilization 6 have had with the game. I think they're being a bit harsh on it because I personally like it. I think there are a lot of improvements to it over Civilization 5, and I wouldn't go back to Civilization 5 after playing Civilization 6, but at the same time, I can sort of understand, given the pricing structure of these DLCs, why the people who bought the digital deluxe version kind of feel like they've been taken for a trip. Their trust in Firaxis has been betrayed slightly. But personally, I enjoyed the scenario. I think there are a couple of interesting city-states that have been added, and overall it is a step in the right direction. I'm glad to see that they also released, of course, the patch along with it that was free. That is definitely a high priority, I think, to keep fixing the various bugs. Like the bug for production still has not been fixed. The most recent production does not show up in the city build menu, which I find inexcusable, really. It's akin to the lack of a sentry button, which they did add in the patch, so they're getting there. We're moving in the right direction. But anyway, that is my overview of the Vikings Scenario Pack DLC for Civilization 6. Thank you very much for watching. What is your opinion on it? Leave it in the comment section below, and I hope to see you next time.